guys. Thank you. So, Rick with Master Meter, where our slogan is you can buy better, but you can't pay more. We, Master Meter is a full meter manufacturer. We manufacture municipal and sub-metering products. We've been in sub-metering a long time. I have been with Master Meter this is my 32nd year. I started when I was 19 in the assembly line, and for some reason I just never got out of prison. So it's we're based out of Dallas, Texas. So we're started kind of like a family group. Most of the guys that I started working with are either still there or just recently retired. Our average tenure is over 15 years. We've got a lot of dedicated folks in the company. We've grown handsomely over the years. Matt's been a big part of that, and we appreciate Matt's business, and a lot of you guys as well have been contributing to that. So looking around the room, we've got a good diversity here. So how many of you guys grew up in the South or live in the South now? About this crazy weather and all that. So how many of you are born before, say, 1980? Oh, a lot of them. Good. So you know what a good old-fashioned homebrew beating at home is. So that's the way I grew up. That's why I think I stuck around. I got stick-to-itiveness because I was taught you do hard work and you don't move around and stuff. And because me and my brother, we were troublemakers growing up. And back in the that era, we were called latchkey kids. We were let in, after school. You just took off, went home, and let yourself in the house because mom and dad both worked and took care of yourself. And nowadays, that's like, oh my gosh, kids I made dinner at 10 years old, by myself. And we got in trouble. Well, I live in the Bible Belt part of the South as well, so everybody knows what that means. And so one time we were in trouble, and my mom, normally I just get the good old-fashioned beating, and mom says, I'm done, I'm taking you to the preacher. And I was terrified. We go, and they sit me outside the office, and my little brother's sitting there, and the preacher says, you come here. So I go in, and he said, I'm going to ask you one question. He says, where is God? And I was just dumbfounded. Oh my gosh, I couldn't say a word. He said, I'm going to ask you one more time, where is God? I just looked at the floor, and he said, all right, if you're not going to answer me, go get your brother. And I go out, and my brother looks at me and says, are we in trouble? And I said, oh yeah, God's missing and they think we did it. So. All right, guys, I'm going to cover. So you guys are familiar that are in the industry or have been familiar with this meter. It's been one of the stalwart meters of the industry. We developed this meter intently for sub-metering actually it was developed in the 90s. It has been relatively unchanged since then. It's been a solid meter. Matt can attest, probably one of the most reliable meters that ever put in service. In fact, probably even compared to most municipal style meters. It's quite over-engineered. Our parent company, which happens to be in Israel, they're just notorious for their engineering capabilities. And throughout the years, you've had different types of registers. We have are most of you familiar with our 3G products, right? I see a lot of nodding heads, right? So the 3G product, what made that quite unique was we kind of call it meter porn. That means the meter just is naked. It doesn't have any protruding wires. I said that word and Matt's face went, Rick, don't say that. We developed the transmitter to fit under the glass and sealed in a hardened glass lens, hermetically sealed device. So we learned early on and through a lot of our competitors' trials that anytime a wire protruded out of a register, it was just incredibly difficult to keep moisture from penetrating that in an outdoor environment. And Master-Meter that's where we really shine, is when these meters are installed in high humidity, wetted, even in the ground environments. And that's also true for this device, which I'm holding. I'm going to pass this one around, and this is our fan meter with the Readmaster. So at first glance it looks identical to 3G, but this is Readmaster. This is our new wireless system, at least new to most of you, for sub-metering. The 3G system was developed for the municipal market and brought into sub-metering, and it always was a little high in the price level. This product has come in at a much better price for sub-metering, and Matt's got them on the shelf, which is nice. And last year we did quite a few installs. I think we're at give or take over 20,000 units installed at this point. And several of the group, in fact, I have some guys on the front row, there's good experience with the installations. And we're opening this up for all the installers to take advantage of. This is going to be the system you're going to look at this system when you're, the big one right now, the big play is MHP, manufactured housing market, where these can go under the unit, next to the unit, or in shallow pits. You can put these in pits. Just keep in mind that when those pits, if they're chronically flooded with water, you are going to get a reduction in range. Won't hurt the meter, but the range may drop it out while that pit is full. Florida, for example, that's going to happen to every pit. Sooner or later, they get these torrential rains every afternoon. It'll pour, dump an inch of water, fill the pit up, but 6 hours later it drains out, it goes back to working. So what makes this operation a little bit unique is we use a gateway. This gateway, we didn't invent it. It's made by Multitech. And the reason we didn't have to invent it is this meter uses the LoRa protocol. This meter is an IoT meter, Internet of Things. So we took a industry standard transmitter. We had a lot of feedback over the years that a lot of customers were getting kind of gun shy about different manufacturers having different protocols. So we looked at the market, looked at different items that were out on the market, and decided on a protocol. And so this it's called LoRa, L-O-R-A, long range, low power radio. So we didn't invent the protocol, we just invented the way to package it under this glass. So we did the same thing with 3G. We put it in the glass register, made it part of the meter, and what that does is allows you to take this meter, install it, and you can actually just record the ID, which, by the way, a lot of folks are not aware of this. On all of our meters under the glass, that meter should come out of the box. Under the glass in 2 spots is the meter ID imprinted on the faceplate. We now do it with a laser, so it can't be rubbed off or lost. It's under the faceplate. It's in 2 spots because the dial may be obstructing it. But also they come with these little stickers, like the one that just fell off the one I was sending around. Those stickers are peel and stick, and then we usually give you 2 of those, and it has a barcode. So you can scan that with a barcode instead of entering that information. And that's important on these Readmaster is the trade name. On Readmaster, that is a 16-digit and it's alphanumeric. You are going to get it wrong if you try to handwrite that down every time. Trust me. So use a device and scan it. You can get free scanners for your phone, pick it up, scan that barcode. There's several apps out there that will do it. We also have our own app. Our phone app is currently in beta test right now, and that app will let you scan it and also send that to the head-end software to do your install. Currently, you take these meters, install them, and just give us a list, and we'll upload the list to the head-end for you. I'm going to show you that head-end in just a moment. Actually, I'm going to get Lane here to drive for me in a few minutes. So the meter can be installed, and on the first 50 gallons or 5 sweeps of this hand, that meter will self-activate the radio and begin looking for a gateway. There is no configuration needed on the gateway. The gateway, you plug it in. It has a 12-volt plug that comes with it to AC. So you plug it in, make sure your antennas are connected. If you're using the built-in cellular connection, then that's ready to go. Out of the box, they come with a SIM card. You would just need to make sure that's activated. If you don't need the SIM and you want to use Ethernet, there's an Ethernet port on it. You plug that in, it gets DHCP, it's ready to go if you've got a standard internet connection. We do not have repeaters with this system. If you need extra coverage, you add another gateway. The meters will automatically train themselves to the gateway with the best signal first. If that gateway drops, then after a period of time, they will realize that they cannot ping that gateway, and they will seek an alternate gateway if it's within range. A lot of installations, guys even though they don't need a second gateway, they may add one for redundancy if the customer's got room in the budget for it. There is no size limit. These are actually utilized in Europe. We use the same system, and we've got 5,000 to 10,000 meters within range of these, and they can handle them easily. So the meters, and they transmit every 6 hours under normal conditions. We're working on an update with the interpreter model. I'll discuss in a bit. Our next level will be hourly transmissions. With the current 6-hour transmission, battery life is exceeding 13 years to 18 years of battery life. The meter has a 5-year out of factory warranty, but we expect that we're going to get easily over a decade. We should be well into probably an average of 15 years or so. And we've got a lot of experience with these batteries. Our 3G systems were originally designed for 10-year battery life, and we're seeing on average about 12 years in those. So we try to give a fudge factor on those. You can also activate this. I'm going to play this in my PowerPoint here real quick. Okay, so in the field, you get this meter and you say, okay, what do I do with it? I've plumbed it. You put the meter in, and by the way, Matt mentioned this when he was talking about these meters. PD meters are pretty tolerant of being put in different orientation. This is a multi-jet, so it means it has a little impeller inside that sits on a shaft with a bearing surface. So this register should always face up. The fan meter was developed so you can take this tube and rotate it according to where the plumbing is and keep this face up. So you're going to do that on your installs. Still keep it face up. If you turn it sideways, the meter will still run. It will just lose low flow accuracy. If you put it upside down, all the gear train and all the parts get a big space in between them. It'll still run, but then at very high flows, it will actually separate the magnet coupling, and you won't get any registration until the meter slows back down. If you've ever seen one of these in like a strip mall or something, usually it's the larger meters. They turn them upside down because they're in the ceiling and they want to be able to read them, and they didn't read the little instruction sheet that comes in every box. And they call me and they say, hey, the little dial in the center is just jiggling back and forth. I said, well, if you turn the valve off, it'll catch up, but turn the meter back over, all the gear train and everything will slide back into position and it'll keep up with it. So You get the meter installed. You also have the option to put a magnet at the 12 o'clock position. There's a little sensor underneath the faceplate. You hold it, and you need a fairly strong magnet, one of those little neodymium magnets, something that'll stick, and you got to kind of pull it off a little bit. That'll work good. You put the magnet on, and the meter out of the box is dormant. We're not allowed to send these transmitting out of the box. So they're dormant, and either 50 gallons runs through the meter, it turns on, or you magnet activate it. Okay, when you hold it on, you hold it for 15 seconds. I say 17 because everybody's one Mississippi, two Mississippis are different. So if you don't get exactly 15 seconds, it won't activate. There's a few modes of operation. There's also some LEDs underneath the faceplate. That was a secondary design aspect. People ask, well, why did you put the LEDs under the faceplate? Well, this is a mechanical meter. If the electronics fail, this register will still operate and the meter will still be accurate. So we added the board, and the LEDs were, somebody in development put those in for development purposes and didn't realize that we could see it through the wheels. So yes, it's hidden between the first black and white wheel if you look down inside of it. And I'll give you a little pro tip here. Obviously, most installations, you're not just sitting nice and comfortable with the meter right here in front of you. A lot of them are behind a water heater. If you're in MHP, you're underneath the unit crawling around, your neck, you need to be a giraffe to get to it. Just take your cell phone out, and with the camera, even if it's not focused like this, hold that over and you can see that really well. So just use a camera on your cell phone as you're activating, you'll see it. Okay. You hold the magnet, you'll see a green light. The green light indicates I've got a magnet detected. Green does not mean it's activated. It means I see the magnet. The flashing red light indicates something's happening. Okay? So we have several modes we can use this magnet for. As technicians, this is really neat. If the meter's installed and has already been activated, I can hit it with a magnet for 1 to 3 seconds. You'll see this flash one time, lift the magnet off. And what you've done, you told the meter just, hey, transmit your information right now. And if you've got a device like this is our technician interface for these meters. If you had that, we have a piece of software that you can capture that beacon over the air, and you verify the meter is activated. You verify its ID. You verify what kind of mode it's in. If it's just started up, or if it has connected to the gateway, you see what its status is. So it's a nice way to do that. The meter's smart enough, by the way, if somebody holds a magnet to it and just leaves it there, it'll eventually ignore the magnet until it's removed and enough time goes around. So somebody, you get a college student or somebody in their dorm, and they've got online and found out about the water meter and found one of our PowerPoints somebody's put on public, they're not going to be able to manipulate the meter other than to make it transmit or do something. All these modes will self-deactivate if you keep manipulating it. The next mode, 5 to 7 seconds, allows you to open technician mode. That's where you're going to see this flash, and then you'll see an alternate amber flash. And that allows the meter to be programmed or interrogated further by the tech software to see what its settings are. It lets you get in Kyler, Lane. You guys have seen this more advanced. And this is where we want to do more investigation of the meter. Maybe we're troubleshooting it. 15 to 17 seconds. This is the one you're going to use most. This is when I've installed the meter and I want to activate it right now. I hold the magnet to the 12 o'clock position. I see the green light. I don't break that connection. I typically say 17. That's more than 15, but not 75, which is the next one. And you'll see the flash. Let the magnet off. The green light will go away, and then this red light will flash until the connection's made to the gateway. The gateway will verify and make sure that the meter belongs in the system. When it's done, then all the lights go out. We don't waste battery running LEDs. So the lights under normal conditions are off. So how do you know if they're off? If the lights are off, right? This one's off. How do I know if it's not just dormant? If I hold a magnet for the 1 to 3 seconds and I don't get these lights, the meter's dormant. It means I haven't woke it up yet. If I hold it 1 to 3 seconds, I see this immediately, then it's already been activated and I know that it's normal and it's most likely connected because the lights are not flashing. Finally, I have a 75-second reset. This might be new to you, Kyler, is this feature is something we typically didn't do before. It's now enabled, and it's a way to, if for some reason the meter has not made a link and you know that it's within range or the meter has timed out, all I'm doing is more or less rebooting the meter radio, not the readings. The readings stay the same. I'm not erasing anything. I'm just telling the radio, hey, forget what you've done as far as linking. Just start again and try to connect to the gateway. And then we found that doing that generally restores connection almost instantly. So that's essentially the installation of that meter. And then here's some information. By the way, all this PowerPoint and I've got some PDFs. I can give you I've got a thumb drive. I'll put that on today if you need it. Just ask me and I'll give it to you, or I can email it to you.
Hey, Rick?
Yes, sir.
Is that available online somewhere as well?
Which ones?
Basically the field type stuff.
There is some. It's more, I've got a sheet that's got a lot more language in it, and for the sake of this meeting, I simplified it. But for this, people have asked for like a demonstration of the lights and this, so I'll also provide this for you. But this is not online currently. But I do have one that's.
Make sure that Chris Steinbeck has that as well. So
yes.
Sales guy.
Right.
Is that Readmaster and 3G? Does it do the same thing?
So 3G, the way it works is it's a bubble up. So 3G also does 50-gallon activation. It does not have a magnet activate. 3G, you activate 50 gallons, and that's how it starts. Or 3G, to read 3G, you have to have what's called a DMMR receiver. It's always listening, so you have a tech tool, and you go and activate it through the tech tool. Called 3G Technician. You type the ID in, and there's a button that says turn radio on or activate. When you do that, the meter will instantly start transmitting. That meter doesn't care if it's connected to a gateway or not. It just transmits every 11 seconds, whether you're in space or not. It's just bubbling out, and if you got a device that can capture it, it does it. This device transmits, but it expects a return reply. If it does not hear it, it retries a few times, and then there's what's called a decay algorithm. So it starts spreading out in time. So the first time you try to activate, it pings this device. If it's not there, it waits a minute, pings it again, waits 5 minutes, 15, an hour, then it goes to a 24-hour window. And that's all to keep us, to get that 15-year battery life. We don't want the meter wasting energy trying to just connect all the time. So, yes, sir.
Okay, so does it ever, once it goes through the 50 gallons
Uh-huh.
cycle, if it's, like say, for an example, we're putting meters through weights and measures in California. And they're gonna run 50 gallons, 60 gallons, however many gallons.
Yep.
That thing comes on, we take it back to our warehouse, we put it in their, job doesn't get installed for 6 months, 8 months. Is the battery gonna be dead by that time?
Nope. No, that's why we do the decay algorithm. So it's actually going to transmit. It's going to try once. After 24 hours, it will already be in that 24-hour window. So it will only try once in 24 hours to try to find a gateway. And then it doesn't even, it's milliseconds. It's just a little blip, and it goes back to sleep. Remember, it's designed to go every 6 hours for 15 years. It only does once every 24 hours to hit the gateway. Then once it sees a gateway, then it says, okay, I'm in network. Now I'm going to go to the 6-hour transmission. So yes, it's fine if it gets activated. The only aggravation about it is when you install it, if you don't do the 75-second reset, it could be up 24 hours before that meter gets back in.
Oh, okay,
See
so you
what-
have to do the 75-second.
You can let it go and it will get in there, but obviously you probably want to verify that. So if you've gone through weights and measures and you see, when we send the meters, we already have 30 to 50 gallons on the meter, but at that point, the meter that activation's reset to 0. Then weights and measures does it, they probably will activate some of them. You need to get those, when you get in the field, put those in and hit that 75-second and make sure that you see the little heartbeat that says, hey, I'm looking for a gateway. It probably will heartbeat for a few seconds to go away. And then you got it. Or if you walk off, the worst case scenario is about 24 hours it's going to get in the system. Now keep in mind, it's looking for a gateway. So always the best scenario, if you have the option, put the gateway in first. Then when you activate meters, or if they get self-activated on site, they get in and they're ready to go. Even if you've not configured anything, the gateway will still pass traffic. Our server will still grab the data. Even if you don't have an account, it's ready to go when you get there. When you get an account and link the meters, then it starts flooding that information in. So because it's an Internet of Things, that data does not go straight from this device to you. It goes up to a provider, just like cell traffic does. That provider aggregates all the meter data. It filters out bad information. It says, hey, that's why that ID is long. That's actually a MAC address. That's the same as your computer has. Every internet connection you have, every device you plug into the internet has a MAC address. It's a machine access code. So that's controlled by the IEEE. It's a one code for that device. The first set of numbers is manufacturer, master meter, and the last set of numbers, 8 digits, is a unique ID to this device. And so that we have a gateway that keeps that information controlled. If you've never done anything and you just go grab some of this, stick it in, or weights and measures activates and somehow it hits a gateway, doesn't hurt anything, nobody's data gets mudded up or anything, it just gets caught there and it's waiting for somebody to say, hey, this ID belongs to, Phoenix and it's on this property. Once they populate that, it goes in. Yes?
I apologize if you already answered this. It may have been what you said about the decay. So the way we usually do these is that we wire them up and then we'll send them out on site and then, we'll have a plumber or whoever will install it. So if we activate it, will that ever disable? And I only ask because sometimes, it'll be a couple of months. They don't always get installed right away when they were planning to. So is there ever a point that activation will disable and they
So
have to do it
you
again?
cannot disable the meter without getting into tech mode, having our tech software in this device. So the meter has no ability to deactivate itself.
Okay.
There is a potential that the meter does not sync properly. We've seen a small percentage of meters in the tens of thousands that are out there that just for some reason they lost track of they tried to connect, that connection was broken and they don't succeed getting back in. That's where the 75-second reset has solved that issue.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Thank you.
But you somebody can't manipulate it with a magnet, they can't turn the meter off. Once that transmitter's on, it's good. Now, I don't recommend activating these if they're not in the system they're gonna be in. Simply because you're just activating a transmitter and it's not efficient. The most efficient way, if possible, get a gateway on site first. Then if a plumber installs the meter, you're installing it, activating, things go much, much smoother. And you get visibility of it quicker.
Can you change, are technicians able to change the batteries out?
No, these are sealed. You can change the register. All of our sealed registers the battery, the electronics, everything is sealed into it. You'd have to destroy the register to get to it. So the register part comes off.
It's dead, it's dead.
Yes, when the transmitter's gone, you replace the register, just like our 3G is.
Does the odometer ever come out of sync from what's?
So it is possible, when you look at this meter, the one we were passing around, is it still around in the room somewhere? Okay. And it's a good question because we see some of this. And this is just like when Easy Meter was talking about. One of the things that's beyond our control is UPS and FedEx. And trust me, I was standing at MTW when our boxes that said no stack backed up to the door and they had them double stacked and crushed. See this faceplate on the front? If you turn it sideways, that faceplate's supposed to be even all the way around. If I take this and drop it on the face, mechanically I can break the register internally. It's not very common, but it's possible. You'll notice that the faceplate will be kicked up, and if you jiggle it, sometimes you'll even see the wheels just freewheel because the gear train is broken. That is where you can get a mismatch. The electronics are still working, usually, and the electronics are still trying to monitor the movement of the gear train. Well, if it's wiggling all around, stuff doesn't work right. That's possible. Under normal circumstances, it's very, very rare to have a mismatch. It is a warranty item if this is not damaged, if that mismatch is more than 2 digits. So right now I'm reading 210 gallons. It's a 10-gallon meter, so the first wheel is in tens. If I'm reading 240 gallons, but I look on the dial face and it actually says 21 or 210, then I will warranty that meter. It's out of sync. And the way these sync, it's got an optical pickup inside. There's a wheel that's black and white, and it has 3 pickups, so it senses how many turns the wheel makes, and it also can sense the direction. It's very accurate. So this meter, while it's possible, is exceedingly rare. I mean, Matt, how many of you seen?
I don't actually work anymore, yeah.
Okay. We've not seen, I think we discussed that about a year ago, Chris, or maybe 5 in all the years we've done it with you. So, and usually the glass is broken or something when somebody says, oh, it's missing. Now, I will say, and I'm at the end of my presentation, in fact, I'll get there, I'll get close. Okay, this is a little different, and this is where this technology is moving. So that's a mechanical register, that's the FAM. The FAM has a smaller cup size, so we're considering making a revision to the FAM, which will be the first major revision in 25 years. Is changing the diameter of the top to allow us to use the newer registers that we have that are a little bit physically bigger. This is a solid state register, okay, and we already have these for other meters, like large meters like this. This meter register is fully solid state. There's no gear train. It senses the magnet, and it's programmable. This is also available in Remaster 3G, and we have a version that has wires for encoder output. The beauty of this one is I have one part number that can fit not only every meter that Master Meter makes, with exception of the FAM currently because of that size restriction, but I can also fit Elster, Amco, Badger, Neptune, and Census meters that have the bayonet style register. So like on this meter, you see how this register plastic could come off? That's called a bayonet style. I currently do not have it because your meter is so new, we haven't done an adapter for it yet. But all I need to do is program it, and I can change the gear ratio, the direction of flow. But what I want you to know about this, because you guys are going to see this, Phoenix, Canon, has anybody else installed these yet? These are called interpreters. Yep. So you have, this meter has a couple advantages. What it gets, what you see is what you get. So the sync, unless the electronics completely fail, you're not going to read anything anyway because the display will be blank. So whatever the meter reads, it tells the display what to read. The display is programmable. So if I want this to be a 10-gallon meter, I program it as a 10-gallon meter or a 1 gallon or a tenth. I can even go to a hundredth of gallons. I don't recommend that because that confuses billing people all over the place. If I have an industrial application, however, that needs that sensitivity, that's great. But typically it'd be a 10-gallon or 1 gallon. I have more digits because I'm not mechanically constrained by gears. So I can go to billions of gallons before the meter rolls over. Billing people love it because you don't get a meter rollover and this weird bill that pops out when it goes back to zeros. It displays your multiplication factor here, and it will tell you if it's gallons. We can do gallons, cubic feet, cubic meters, and acre feet. It displays the rate of flow. So this meter, and most mechanical meters, are going to have a telltale somewhere on the meter. They're going to have a dial that spins. Most people call that the leak indicator, and that's where it's moving around. You can see water's flowing. This one is digital, and it'll tell you in gallons per minute down to the tenths of gallons per minute, or cubic meters an hour, or liters per second if you're in Canada. So you're going to see the gallons per minute, the actual flow. That's really nice, and I'll give you a tip. Customer says, I didn't use that much water. You have one of these on irrigation, is probably where you're going to see them first. And you look down, and the thing is running, it says like 50.5 gallons. Take that, multiply it times 1440, all right? And so you just take these gallons per minute. 1440 is how many hours are in a day. Minutes in a day. And you take that, your math comes out to how much water they're going to use in a day. If that sustained rate is running, and it's an eye-opener, they're like, what? People are really surprised when the toilet's running and it says 2.5, that they can swallow over 1,000 gallons a day like that. It goes right down the drain and it's disappeared. And so that is really helpful over a little dial that spins. Also shows you the direction of flow, and it gives you some alerts. We have a leak alarm, battery, and just letting you know something's not right. These are also programmable as to what I see from the meter over the radio or the AMR system. In the case of the encoder models, it's which we call them wheels or dials, which ones are being transmitted. See the little line underneath? So I can have the meter read in tenths of gallons, but only transmit 1,000 gallon usage or 100, and I just select which one of those I want to send out. So when you get these from Master Meter or MTW, they're going to default, MTW is probably going to default to the standard 10 gallon or whatever that meter size is. But when you order them and you need a specific ordering, we have a sheet that's going to come out and you're going to tell us what you want. So you're going to say, I want it in gallons per minute, I want it in cubic feet, and I want it to count in 1 cubic foot, but I want to only transmit it in 100 cubic foot to billing. Something like that. Yes?
Can I do a quick survey?
Yeah.
1 gallon per 1 pulse, 1 gallon, or 1 pulse per 10 gallons. So who likes to see if you could have it either way, 1 pulse per 1 gallon, 1 pulse per 10 gallons in the smaller size meters? Who wants to see 1 per 10? Raise your hand. 1 per 1? Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, Chris, I'm wrong.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say it, man.
That's why you're not working anymore.
That's great.
The answer is we don't want either, we want them both.
Yeah, well, so we've been doing that. I mean, sorry, quick tangent, but we've been doing
Yep.
that on the mechanical side, is doing the 1 per 1 and the 1 per 10. And, what's really great about these is the configurability. It's a blessing and a curse, right? The curse is, how did I order that thing? Somebody else ordered that, how's it configured? Pretty sure that Master Meter tracks that if Master Meters program them internally.
We do track, if we programmed it, we have a track of that. You can call us, give the serial number, say, how was this programmed as it left the factory? and we'll tell you what that is.
And
It's in the
we will
database.
probably stock those as programmed with the capability to program them in-house. We're probably not gonna wanna program them in-house if we don't have to. That way, the data can always default back to master meter. Does that make sense?
I always recommend don't program if you don't have to. Order it if you've got the leeway to order it. Obviously, things happen, and you know you're in a crunch and you've got one in your hand, and you ordered it for a 2-inch master meter, and you're looking down at a 3-inch Badger. Well, you can use it. We'll get the software, and you can program it. Just keep in mind, you can program it any way you want, and you can make it really, really way off. If you program it as a hot water 1-inch multi-jet, you stick it on that PD, it's going to be significantly off, right?
And it's probably, in our case, just you programming or us programming, right? So we don't end up in that situation. It's way too easy to end up in that situation.
Right, right. If you order from Master Meter, we will send it as a kit, and it comes out with the shroud that fits the meter, and it will have a sticker on it that says what it's made for. It'll say Master Meter 1-inch multi-jet or something like that. Makes it easy for you. But if you have them in stock, it's one of the benefits. It's just you have to be careful with it. The software that programs this does have a catalog, so we're not going to expect you to just make numbers up. You have a catalog, and you choose that meter size, type, and setting, and it populates the field for that meter, and then you just say, okay, that's it. And then I want you, the one options you want to choose is that times 10, times 1, 1 to 10. You do that, and you're ready to go. And the nice thing is it is displayed, so you can verify that. So that is also the same display that is on our Sonata meter, which if you've seen it on the website, that's our solid state meter that has no moving parts. It's the same display on our Octave, which is the display will be significantly larger, and some of the items are a little bit in a different spot. That's our solid state for 1.5 inches and larger. So those meters as well share this common interface. Yep.
One more.
Yes, sir.
One in every class. If you do choose to report the thousands of gallons, so the 3 digits to the right won't have the underline bar on them, will it report those 3 zeros, or will it just lop them off?
So the software actually has the capability of capturing that. If it's over the radio that comes out, we do have a count that's hidden in the back, but you have to poll it to get it. It doesn't come out in the software. That's why I say it's a caveat with it. Also, you have to pay attention. There is a decimal point here, so you got to look for that decimal point if you have tenths. That's another catch. But what you're doing here is telling it what to transmit over either that radio or in encoder. Encoder, it definitely doesn't keep track of those numbers. Now, are you asking for the calculation inside, or for your?
I'm wondering if I'm a billing company and I'm getting data.
Okay, if you're a billing company,
The register's been programmed for thousands, so I'm not counting hundreds, tens, or ones.
then you're going to get thousands.
Okay, so it's gonna be 5,000. It's gonna be 6,000.
That's right.
Okay, right.
It's not going to transmit to you those fields. But the register is keeping track of those in its data log stream, and it's retrievable in the data log on a wireless system. On the encoder, it is what you get. It just, if I don't have these selected and this is thousands, for example, then that's all I'm going to get is that 1,000, like you said.
But the question is the 3 zeros going to be there or not? Is it going to be 5, or is it going to be 5000 in the data?
So it sends it as a 5 if you're getting the data from Harmony. Harmony takes this. Keep in mind, it sends the 5, but it tells you the factor as well, right? So on the output file, it says 5, and then the factor is 1,000, and in the next field is what's called extended read. 5 times 1,000 is 5,000. Yep. And you can take either field. Some people like to take the raw data. Others want the final factor and let us calculate factor. And that's like the 1 to 10 thing. It's all preferential. Some people like to do factoring. And then some people like factoring to be done in billing. So they don't even want it. They just wanted you to put it in, and they they assign a factor, which can get really interesting. So I prefer when the factor comes out, it is what you expect at billing, pass it all the way through the system and let the meter do the job and just verify it. My preference, but. Any other questions on it?
So the meter bodies are available separately, and then the heads are available separately as a part number?
On FAM or on other meters?
On both? No,
So-
not on FAM, you said FAM was smaller. On-
Yeah, actually on the interpreter, you can order a meter with an interpreter register.
What about
And that would come as a unit if you ordered from the factory. Generally what you're doing is you're doing irrigation or something like that. If you have the time or you're ordering from Master Meter, we can put it on there. Most of the time, what's recently been happening, because we have pretty significant lead times on the larger the meter, the larger the lead time. We're at 12 weeks or so on some items. So he has them in stock. He has them as a direct read water meter or a pulse output, which is the default setting. You just take that register off and put this register on. You'll sacrifice that mechanical read register is more likely the scenario right now. Now, if you're ordering hundreds of, say, 5/8¾ and you want the metal meter and you want this on there, then it makes more sense probably to order and get it through the factory. So also, if you have this register and the meter fails, yes, we can sell just meter bodies, or let's say it freezes and breaks. You can sell, we do sell the bodies as well. You can put it on there. And if you have a meter with this register and it gets moved to a different size, it can be transferred, reprogrammed, and continue use like that.
Eddie, you guys gonna disconnect discontinue the original FAMs? The ones with the reed switch? Are you guys?
No.
Is that gonna get phased out?
No, we sell too many of those. That's going to stay the same. The only thing we're talking about changing is the size, but we're still going to continue all the pulse output we have to. That's a staple for us.
Because, I mean, and are you guys going to try to get back into California and get tech approval and all that stuff on the new stuff?
Yes.
You are?
On the FAM currently is type approved in California. When we make a change like that, we have to resubmit that to California. The goal is to get the NTEP certification, so it's done in all the states as well. So but your FAMs are already type certified, and your hot water 1-inch is certified out there. And that is with the Conservis logo on it, because Conservis, it was an agreement we had years ago when Master Meter kind of pulled out of California, like most manufacturers. Conservis said, look, we'll take that and deal with weights and measures. That's why MTW stocks Conservis hot water 1-inch, is because it's type certified in California.
Did you ever get on the New York list?
We are or were on that, and I don't know the current status. I don't know, and it's another one of those things like you're dealing with. If you get another type of certification, you don't need it. You're grandfathered in. So
I was going to ask you about that. Is water meters going through NTEP like electric meters going through NTEP? So we're up for.
we're just behind. We've just been slow about getting it as a group. We need to get our NTEP.
We're looking at approval and for vote approval in August. So we'll have an NTEP for the nation on electric meters.
We're seeing NTEP being more and more utilized even in municipal,
For sure.
which
And that's going to apply to New York. New York doesn't really want to do what California does, but they wanted to regulate it. So they had an agreement with Met Labs to do this kind of testing. But they're going to do NTEP and Excel.
One thing I want to note on this real quick before I get off of it, I'll forget. If you don't know and you try to activate this thing with a magnet, you'll get real frustrated because on this meter, you put the magnet up here. On this meter, it's right down in this corner. And so a lot of people get confused by that. So the sensor's under the glass, so just flip the side. It's actually a little bit off-centered, but being on the bottom will work fine. This meter has a big advantage over this one on the install level, because this one, if you want, you don't have to use the lights. You can do the verification and then just wait, make sure it gets in, but the lights are helpful. This one, this space right here that's blank, there's another hidden character, and it's just a digit that we don't display for reading. Well, when you hold the magnet on, you're going to get a couple alphanumeric characters. One, when we go into tech mode or when we're wanting to program it, it's an L for listening. And when we activate and it connects, there'll be a C, and the C tells you you're connected to the system. So it's quite easy to look at the dial face and determine if it's activated and in the system. If it's also, the meter, when it's shipped, will say storage. It won't have numeric numbers here. It'll actually have the word storage on the face, and you know it's never been activated and it's ready to be used. If you put in service and you see these digits, that means it's activated, and then C, it's connected. All right. And Matt, just so you know, in the field I don't see them using this. For the bench, there's a test mode we can put these in, which temporarily moves the decimal over and allows you to get down to decimal digits. So if they've programmed this to say thousands or hundreds, you move it over and we can get super accurate on the test bench, and that test mode will expire and revert back to the setting that's on it.
I think Volkswagen did that for their diesels.
Yeah, only difference is we disclose it. All right. That's all right. So I've got, just real quick, just to kind of show you what you're looking at, a little live. So this is called a VTR. It's a terminal. The reason it's called a V, the V stands for, I think it's the stupidest name on the planet. Originally the code name for this was called Volcano. I don't know where that came from. So it's Volcano Terminal. So the VTR kind of stuck. So right now these are USB. We want to make these Bluetooth. So when our app on our phone is basically, you can take your phone, have this in your pocket or up next to your phone, doesn't matter, Bluetooth, and you connect, because I don't want to carry a laptop around programming. Wrong one. Okay. So when we connect to the software, and this screen's messing up my resolution, I may have to change it. You open it up, plug it in. You're going to choose the serial port that this comes in. If you don't know what that serial port is, just you pull this little list down, it shows you. If you still don't know, and there's a ton of them on, some people have virtual ports all over the place for different devices, just disconnect it, hit this refresh, look at the list, disconnect it, and the one that pops up is going to be the one you need to connect to. When I connect, I probably chose the wrong one right away. And if, yeah. So I'm going to refresh. See if it goes up. All right, see how the list got smaller? And it shows ones I have on my computer independently. Refresh. Should be that one. There we go. So now it connected and it's giving me the ID of this box, when the firmware date was, hardware version, all that good stuff. So I'm good to go. I know I'm connecting to this device. Also, it has little LEDs when it transmits, you know it's working. And now I'm going to the end unit, this is considered the end unit. So I've got a magnet on my wallet, that's why I'm using my wallet. So if I can go over here and I connect, I hit start search, right? Notice the button now went to stop search, so it's waiting. And I can hit with the magnet. And that gave me the ID for that meter. So I don't have to try to write that ID down if it's activated. I also just verified that this meter that's the ID. It says fixed mode, okay? That means fixed base. It means the equipment does not move around. And it gives me some battery and level, even gives me the temperature in Celsius of the circuit board, and some information. And then I can proceed to programming the meter. If I want to do programming, generally I'm not going to have to program these. I have to hit stop. All right, and then I can come over and I can check things like the current operation mode, the status, alarms. All of our meters give alarms, by the way, and it's really powerful things you can use. Master meters, 3G meters, and our Readmaster, they determine leaks at the meter. Okay, you can still do it in billing. If you want to have a high and low or consumption over time, that's fine. The way Master Meter does it is the meter registers constantly watching meter flow. It expects a 3-hour quiet period in any 24-hour rolling time frame. So if it sees 3 hours, that clock's reset. And it goes another 24 hours. If it sees 3 hours of quiet in that time period, it's reset. If, say, there's a toilet leaking and it uses 10 gallons an hour and a half into bedtime, and it never gets past an hour and a half, the meter will transmit its data and then have an alarm that says leak. Okay? So that's why also we turn leak alarms off on meters larger than 1.5 inch, because usually they're industrial or there's ice makers and restaurants, you get false positives. But in residential, the leak alarm is a great tool. Use that, you guys in billing. Do the quick check. When you go in our software, check that and those leak alarms. In fact, good time for you to jump on and I'll show you what it looks like on the end. So you can check your status, you can check the work mode, and you can put these in dormant. So this is the only way to do that is with this device logged in. You go to work mode, you program it, you intently program it to go back to storage mode. Why would you do that? You're supposed to do that if you send these back in for some reason. We're not supposed to send these transmitting, although nobody really does that, but I have to tell you that we're supposed to turn them off to put them in the transit system. All right, I'm gonna stop and if you start. And this software is about as simple as it gets.
Hey, Rick,
Yes, sir.
will Master Meter be sending out magnetic wallets, or will they have cash in them?
Only to you, my friend.
$100
Actually, I got this. I didn't even know I'd use it so much. And normally we have magnets. Everybody has their, you guys have them for your little, the DigiRead, I think. And you lose them all the time. And the MyTechs, several of them I've run into have figured out that some of the best ones to get, if you go into the hardware store or even Walmart, go back to where they have those like craft items, and you can find these little neodymium magnets that have a little eyelid on them for hanging stuff, and they're great. And they'll put them on like a little neck lanyards, you know, like this, and they'll have it on their neck, and just that way you don't lose it, because everybody loses them. And little tip. Okay, I'm going to finish up right here, and if you have any questions, and then we'll do lunch. Are we just about ready for lunch, Chris? Or we?
Yeah, I mean, once, you got about 25 minutes till they start serving.
Okay, cool. This will probably get, with questions and all that, be perfect. Okay, so this is Harmony. This is where you get the data from the system. So the system, as I mentioned, on Readmaster, it uploads, it goes through the gateway. There's no configuration of the gateway. The gateway is already programmed when it leaves factory, so it just needs power and it needs meters talking to it. This is how it comes out of the box. Your gateway, these antennas will not be attached, so I do have to mention something here. This is, has come up. There's 4 connectors on this. All the connectors, and I'll take this one off just to show you. All the connectors are gold except one. So if you'll notice, these 3 right here, they'll be gold. This connector is silver, and if you were to pay attention to it, the polarity is different on the inside. The thread on the outside is the same, so you could force this antenna in the wrong spot. What will happen is you'll bend these little pins on the end of the antenna. So one is a standard polarity. These are called SMA, and then the other one's called reverse polarity SMA. All right. This little round antenna, you'll have 2 flat ones and a round one. The round one is the one that picks up the water meter reads, and that goes to this little silver one labeled RF. This is your radio. So you put that one on. It's critical you get that right for 2 reasons. One, it's a mechanical mismatch if you don't put it in the right hole, but also this antenna is 900 megahertz, license free. That's what our systems are. We don't have any frequency programming or anything. These actually channelize themselves, and the gateway controls that. So if there's noise on one channel, it will tell the meter to retransmit and try a different one. And it has, this one is 64 channels, so it's quite powerful, and it will move. It may take up to 2 days to optimize. So Phoenix, I think you guys have seen it. When you put a system in, you might see, let's say you're expecting 100%, but you might see 90, but over like 2 or 3 days, you've seen how it moves itself up. Okay, that's what it's doing. It's putting these meters in a better space based on the traffic or noise in the area. These 2 antennas are identical. They're interchangeable. You can put them on. One antenna is marked cell, and one is or GPS and cell. So your GPS, it does have a GPS inside. That's just kind of a feature that's built into these. So if it can detect the GPS satellites, then we get the GPS coordinates to this device. Side benefit to this, on a future update to this software, we'll not only pass you the GPS location, but part of the LoRa protocol is if I have 3 of these on a site, if the site's big enough, I can triangulate where a transmitter is. Basically, using GPS, it knows where this is, and then by the transmit, it will determine where that meter is on property. So, but it takes 3 of these to do that. It can get a rough estimate with less than 3, but it's very accurate with 3. And it's not available today, but the next iteration of this software, which is in development, will have that. And the other antenna is your cellular antenna. And these are multi-band, so they work in all the cell and GPS frequencies, so you don't mix them up. And then there's one called auxiliary, and we do not use that one. That's for a feature that's not added in. Also, this is the current model. We also are doing trials right now. We have 2 more models. One is a smaller indoor unit, very small. that can go indoor in small spaces, or if you just have a very small system, like a little shopping center. Let's say we were to sub-meter this building and had some office spaces. I could probably get away with a little small one, and it's going to be lower cost. And then we have an outdoor rated, NEMA rated box that can go direct mounted, and it's powered power over Ethernet. So an Ethernet cable will power it and communicate if you want Ethernet, but super simple install, and you don't need a NEMA box to put this in. Currently, this is indoor rated only, so if you're going outside, you'll need to provide your own NEMA box and power to that box to get this operating outdoors. And I've got a lot of them doing that. They're fine, just make sure they're essentially splash proof. And ventilate them a little bit. Hot climates like Phoenix, obviously you're going to ventilate it. These boxes do run a little warm, that's normal, and they've handled a lot of heat. I have a spec sheet, or you can get it from Multitech. These same devices are using the power grid, so they're super robust, and they're long-lived. The cell modems we're using are 3G, 4G, so they're fine. We're not in the loop where they're going to cancel 3G and we got to replace them all. Like a few years ago, all the 2G dropped and everybody had to get new modems. So these got a lot of life left in them.
Approximate range?
Ranges, that's good. I should have addressed that. So that's one of the benefits of the system, other than the water being out in a wetted location. So we have really good range. In MHP, we're looking at a radius of around 1,500 feet average. If the meter is underskirting and buried underneath the unit. If the unit is outside, like we have in Phoenix, Florida, we have half mile or greater, and that's radius from this. So line up from this device to that. So a lot of sites have one of these collectors. In Florida, we've got several sites that only have two because they want redundancy. Now, terrain is always your biggest hurdle. Terrain is going to be, radio does not go through the ground, it goes over it. So it gets, and most of your signals get there through bouncing off stuff as opposed to line of sight. So when you have terrain, if you get into places like Colorado, any of the mountainous range, even here, if I had a property that spanned and it was on both sides of the hill, I'm definitely going to need a gateway on each side of that terrain more than likely. Yes?
What does the cell service run on those?
Cell service is, master meter usually direct bills that as part of the plan. It's optional, you can use the cell or not. It's $15 per month if you pay annually. So I think it's pretty fair. You can bring your own cell. The only one we authorize, if you look at the spec sheet, this says it's good for Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T. We have found that Verizon's really sticklers about equipment. They don't like third-party equipment very much. T-Mobile says it works, and then they promptly will shut it off if they don't know what it is. They don't understand the traffic, and they'll remote kill it. We had problems with it. So you can bring your own AT&T SIM. That SIM, by the way, there's a little Phillips screw. This cover, you pull it off, and there's a slot inside, and pop that SIM in. So you can bring your own if you'd like.
When you were saying about being able to triangulate, where they are, were you saying that you needed 3 of the data collectors to do that, or 3 of the registers?
Data collectors.
Okay.
Yeah, the collectors have to have a triangulation. The accuracy goes up to, its best accuracy at 3, and it can get a little bit at the other. It can kind of give you a guess. What it's doing is looking at, because it's digital, and it has a specific transmit time, it knows how long that transmission is, kind of like a Doppler almost. So it's pretty accurate. We do recommend that you GPS when you install them. And currently, you have to record that, use your phone, use some apps. There's several apps doing it. Our app will GPS locate when it's out of beta, and I'm hoping that's out this fall. with COVID and the supply chain, and my parent company in Israel just recently had a small war they went through, so that put us back a little bit.
I know it's hard to project timelines and everything right now, but for the smaller indoor gateway and the outdoor rated gateway, do you guys have a loose projection of when those will be?
So we've got those those are in testing. Hopefully I'll have those this fall. And actually, if you want to be kind of part of that testing, what I would like to see is some sites that I could put them on. Maybe have, if you've got a site that's using a couple of these, then maybe put one of these on and then one of those on, and we'll just to compare, so we don't have if there's something not matching up, it should be fine. It's actually, these devices have been used globally before. We just personally haven't used them. And after the T-Mobile debacle last year, where we had T-Mobile stopping those, we just want to see it for ourselves. So, all right, real quick on the, yes, sir.
One quick question. How's it on the high-rise building? Multi-level high-rise?
That's good. Actually, Lane, you guys have one. That's the high-rise in South Padre.
That's actually right.
Oh, this is it. Okay. So that's why I got Lane. Lane, by the way, he's with Canon Metering, and Lane has some experience working with this. So yes, this is Padre. So Padre is a high-rise. It's a beach high-rise, so it's hurricane rated, reinforced concrete, very tough RF scenario for most applications. And one of the things I was going to show you, when you log in the software, this is pretty much where you want to look first, is this 99.5%. This site's under construction right now. It's not complete yet, is it? Is it just?
I think it's right around the edge.
Okay. So it's been construction. I think you started installing this spring, and then it's been, so we're at 99.5% reception. There's 240 meters. And then, so Lane, actually, if you'll just kind of take it, listen to a technician that does this and not just from me. So what would you do? What do you do just first off to check the health, other than just looking at that?
Well, for the ones that can kind of see the wheel at the bottom, the little portion that's red, if you hover over it, it will show you how many meters are not checking in. In this case, it's only one.
Okay.
And then if you hover over the yellow, it shows you the total that are, so 239 to 240. And then that gives you an idea of how many you need to look for in the system to figure out why they're not checking in.
One thing, because we do a lot of outdoor, and this is also the same software we'll use. If the city of Atlanta bought we have a system that's called Allegro. It's a high-end. It uses 4 watts. It's way too expensive for sub-metering, but if they bought our AMI system from Mastermeter, this is the exact software they use for an entire city management. We have sites with 200,000 meters on them. So you're getting the benefit of the software suite that runs those. We don't use all those features, but the suite these are these capabilities. One thing it's doing, you notice that it's got these maps, and we even show rainfall. It's looking at if you've GPS located your equipment. The reason we do that is you might want to go back and find out why was this only showing 92%? And you look out, well, you're not there, right? You're at your billing station, and this happens to be in Florida or here, and it's rained, and you got pit set meters, and they're full of water. Well, the water may have reduced the range enough that they're offline temporarily. And you say, oh yeah, look, I just had a bunch of rain. And you wait, and these meters are going to automatically rejoin the system and go back to operation. Not only that, is they backfill information. The meters data log the reads, and if they can hit the system, they start backfilling the missing data that was because they have a time clock in them. All right, and then, yes, sir?
Question for you or Lane, is that one gateway, and where is that gateway?
I believe this is actually 2 gateways.
2 gateways and it's 20-something story.
20-something stories. It's actually 2 buildings. There are two buildings or two high-rises that are connected together, that makes sense. Like I said, it's two of them that are connected at the bottom like a lobby. But with the locations up on the concrete rebar, we had to put in two gateways to even get all these meters checked.
Are they at the bottom or the top?
The gateways, I'd have to look at the map, they're kind of about halfway up.
Halfway.
Yeah.
That's a good question too. So placement is something, it's one reason I like, and you're using the internal antennas, right? You don't use it. So this antenna is the default shipping. You can add an external high gain antenna. The stat on this is we want it no more than 6 dB gain. All right. So you can go buy, if you want, you can buy a 15-foot tall, 15 dB gain, 900 megahertz antenna. And it'll work, but you'll be outside the FCC rules. I can't ship a 6 dB. I ship it like this. I supply 3 dB, which is actually what this technically is rated at. So if you buy an antenna from Master Meter for external, you're gonna get a 3 dB gain antenna. So what I recommend, you are free to go purchase third party, and I can give you links for that, higher gain antennas. You can even get pattern antennas, as long as you don't exceed the 6 dB gain at that, because this does transmit, it's two-way, and you'll be at too high of power level by FCC standard. When you're putting an external antenna on, what you're doing is you're basically repositioning where this is received, getting the gain. You'll use coax. We use typically LMR 400 if you're making notes. And I now find that most people buy it on Amazon. It's trying to find a local provider that can do it quickly. And if you specifically, MPD Digital is a name on Amazon that typically has the good connectors. Remember, this is a reverse polarity SMA, so you can use a coax that has that on this end or an adapter that gets you there. And your antennas typically have what's called an N connector on them. Okay, so if you're going to use those and they work, when you go to an outdoor antenna, and if you can get that up about 20 feet above the ground or better, which is typically the roof height of a 3-story building, or give or take, your range can be pretty extensive. In Florida, we've had these mounted outdoors where they're kind of on a riser because they don't freeze, and we've seen 2 miles when you get to that outdoor. Don't go tell a customer you're going to get 2 miles, because that'll be the site you get half a mile or something. But be aware that you can, and the reason that's happened is I've had other sites that actually attached to gateways on another site and utilize that gateway. And these will, by its nature, they will share, if it sees a better connection and you got 2 sites with the same system, it's going to utilize that other system that's the best connection, and it's going to send it, and vice versa. So it's not going to hurt your data or anything else, because one transmission every 6 hours on a cell plan. If you have a 1 gig cell plan, you can do multiple sites with it easily. It uses about 4K per transmission. So it's very, very small. All right, real quick. Yes, sir. Yes.
So for example, on the high rise, would you put that data collector in the middle, or the higher the better?
I generally try to get the middle. Anytime you do really any job, the first glance, if you can, try to put it in the center. And that, think of your antenna as a spoke on a wheel laying sideways, and that collection's, or like a donut, that collection's around. It's a vertically polarized, and you want it to have an omnidirectional pattern if possible. So you have that circle that goes out. My general rule of thumb is if you don't know the construction, you're bidding a job, and it's fairly flat terrain, it's not too much, then I try to use a 1,000-foot radius and work and bid it that way. If you get 1,500, you don't have to put another gateway if you can get away with it. but budget it like that.
Well, on a 40-story high-rise, would you put it on 20th floor or 40th floor?
On a 40-story,
Yeah,
I would put it in the middle.
in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about how does it feel about titanium glass stuff? Coating.
So
I mean, is the signal gonna come?
well, it's gonna have trouble getting out of the glass.
Oh, it goes out just fine, it's coming back in. That's-
Well, yeah, so what's gonna happen, because it's a metal, so the metal's gonna reflect signals. So, but if your gateway's on the inside of the building, it's actually a net benefit because it bounces off and travels around the system. Your high rises, they're a challenge because of their construction material, but if you put devices close to like an elevator shaft or an equipment chase where you have all your electrical going, that's actually a RF pipe if you can get there. So signals will hit that and bounce all up and down inside there. But I'll tell you how well it's working. He's got the two gateways and they cannot have a cell conversation where that gateway is. Cell phones don't work. They have to leave that area and go next to a window or something, but it picks the meters up just fine.
Well, isn't it normal, the normal realm is to try to keep it away from the RMFs? Like elevators, anything that's putting out a lot of electric?
Well, I would if it's a continuously monitored system. The gateway, I wouldn't put this piece of equipment within a few feet of like an electrical motor, right? The elevator shaft motor, which typically is on the top. But I don't have any problem putting this in an equipment room that has electric meters, that kind of thing. Obviously, if you can do a quieter location, quieter is always better. But normally this is where you're relegated to, is for service and access is somewhere where there's equipment. What you do want to do is keep this antenna, try as best as you can to not have any metal within 2 feet. Sometimes that's almost impossible, but keep it as far away from a metal object because anything metallic close to it is going to change the pattern of way this receives. All right, especially if it's really, really close. On 900 megahertz, the near field is within 3 inches of this. So that's the real sensitive part. And you want this antenna, usually you want it to be vertical and turn these slightly away from it. Don't do this, don't do it like that, where it's touching. Bring this out or slightly at an angle, and don't have it horizontal like that, because the signal out of the meter actually is polarized, it's vertical. Same with your outdoor antenna, you want a vertical. All right, Lane, real quick, go ahead and go to your meter list.
Just showing like all the meters and stuff?
Mm-hmm. So this is fine, you're getting a little graphical overview. This is customizable, by the way, but most of the time you're going to the software to do what you got to do every month and do billing or to do install or service. So just pull up the whole list.
Do you want to do the consumption or just the list?
Just do the list, so just choose all here.
I'm not sure if you wanted to show any usage or anything.
Mm-hmm. So this is so I got the pie chart and it says we're 99.5%. We got 1 meter not transmitting. So if I go over and choose, it's always 1. Choose last read, just click where last read time is. Just click the word last read time. Yep, right there. All right, so see how it's, right there, that's it. See that meter? That's the meter ID. By the way, it's a hexadecimal meter ID, but a lot of billing systems do not like alphanumeric IDs. Some of them don't like it. So we convert the hexadecimal to a decimal for simplicity. We'll click on it in a minute, I'll show you. See how this is blank? That means that meter has never been read. If it's ever been read by the system, we will always keep the last reading, even if it's years old. But because it's never been read, it's blank. So that meter either is not been installed and activated, or it's not there. It's in some guy's truck, in the maintenance guy's truck or something, or the ID is not correct. and so the system doesn't see that ID. So that's a real quick check, and anytime you click one of these headers, it sorts it ascending or descending. Now that we've clicked it though, we know that's the meter. Click on that, the ID of it once. By the way, you'll see reference on this software to drive-by. That only applies to 3G and our AMI system. Readmaster currently does not have a drive-by mode, so it's only read through these. All right. So it's got a 16-digit alphanumeric character, so it's probably correct, but you might want to check that lane.
I think the case with this one is that one just hasn't been installed yet.
Yeah. We don't have any data in all these fields, mailing address, meter size. Actually, if you hit meter details tab right here, all these fields, there's a few that'll be pre-populated. There's your latitude, longitude. Up, you have your, when the meter reads, it'll give us the signal strength up and down. This is all editable by you as the user. If you're the one in control of the software, you can edit this. You can put in notes, meter notes, when it was installed, who installed it, however you want to do. And that gives you some nice information. That stays a permanent record of this, and you can go back and look at service, change outs, things like that. Okay? Did we locate these on the map? Do you know? Hit the GIS, just curious. GIS, graphical information system, or geographical. Yeah, you did. So go to communications. This might be new to you, Lane. I don't know if you've done this. Uh-oh, hold on. Oh, you did. Did you hit the button?
No, it's done that to me a couple times.
So the GPS right now, it's an extra step when you're putting in, you got to make sure you're doing it, but it's really, really nice to have later. Because if a different technician goes out or years later you're trying to do some troubleshooting, okay, click meters, receiving quality, meter. See what happens here. Yeah, so what's happened is you got to probably have an address upload, or the decimal got off on some of these.
Yeah, that's mine to get off on that one.
Yeah, but go ahead and go down to where these are. We know they're in South Padre. Just click on them and it'll zoom into them. Keep going. See how it pulls them out? And just keep zooming in or hit plus.
It kicks me off again.
See if we can get back to one of those. Here we go. Click on one of the bubbles. Click on one of those bubbles. Okay, stop right there. So when you see it on the map, now this isn't a high-rise, so they're all going to, obviously the address is stacked up, right? So that's why when we're clicking it's blowing it out. If this is a garden style or a manufactured, it'll be spread out and it'll be where you pinpointed it. We also can import the address. If it has a physical mailing address at each meter, we can import that and get it pretty close for you. But here's one of the neat features. You guys they're doing billing, or you're going to dispatch a tech, and it's 2 years from now you've installed it. I don't know where this is at. Go to this, hit Street View. See the Street View? Click on that. See, this is new to you, isn't it? You haven't seen it. And the wireless is dropping out. So just like Street View and Google, you're going to see the location and can zoom around, especially when you have these in MHP or these housing units or retail spaces, at least you're gonna know roughly. If somebody GPSed or at least got the address translation in there, gives you a lot of awareness of where this is, or maybe why it's not working. So don't touch it so it stays there. But let's say this was an MHP and the meter's in a pit right here, and there's a big old trash can sitting right on top of it. That'll stop it. Or it's in a pit with a cast iron lid. When you do these pit meters, always change that lid out to plastic. That's going to give you the range. That cast iron lid is terrible. So, all right, that's essentially it. One more thing and I'm going to let you go is how do you get the reads out of the system at the point? So Lane does consumption. You can do a consumption report. Most of you guys are working with a billing company or are a billing company, so you do your own consumption calculations. You just need the reads. I hit the word meter right there. I choose all meters, hit display. It brings this list up, and I hit the word export, and it creates a Excel file for you. It'll pop up and ask, where do you want to put that file? You take that Excel file, and everything is in columns, read, ID, date and time, and read factor and alarms. So you have all the information. See how we have the read, and we have the decimal here because we know the factor. But the read before and after factor are available.
And Rick, if I can add real quick, if you do a total consumption for a period, it's the same setup. Only difference is you can choose dates.
That's right.
You can, if you want to do 24 hours or 6 months, and it will show you the consumption for
That's
whatever,
right.
whatever dates that you chose to set.
See this block right here where it says meter? That's all the reports you can do that we have canned right into it. You can do it by day, hour, or 6 hour in this case. You can do it, if somebody says, hey, I'm challenging a bill, go look at the hourly or 6 hour reports for that last period. You'll see it. It'll be tabulated, and then you'll have this big consumption period. And if the toilet's leaking, what I always do is take a look at 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. Most people aren't using services at that time, and you see it's using 20 gallons an hour every time, and it adds up. Any other questions? They're waving on. We're ready for lunch. If not, thanks, and